There's a moment you realize they never really knew you. Not because you were hiding, but because they were never really looking. And that moment hurts, but it also sets you free. The invisible grief of being misread. There are heartbreaks no one talks about. Not the kind where someone leaves, but the kind where someone stays and still doesn't see you. You show up, you care, you try to be clear, but somehow your words twist in midair. Somehow, you always end up defending your intentions more than expressing your truth. They call you too distant, too much, too complicated. And it cuts deeper because you weren't wearing a mask. You were trying. You were honest. It's the kind of pain that doesn't scream. It just quietly erodes your belief that anyone will ever truly get you. The truth: you can't control how others perceive you. Here's the hard truth. You can be the clearest version of yourself, and someone will still misread you because they're not seeing you. They're seeing their fears, their wounds, their assumptions. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, once wrote, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. And that includes the way people see you. They're not seeing the full picture. They're seeing a projection, filtered through their own lens. And no amount of over-explaining can change a distorted lens." I kept trying to be clearer. Until I broke, there was someone I cared deeply for. For months, we kept getting into the same misunderstanding. I'd try to share something vulnerable, maybe about my anxiety or how I process stress, and they'd reply with something like, "No, you're always so negative." I'd feel this heavy wave of shame crash over me, so I'd try again. Gentler, simpler, try to make it easier for them to see what I meant. But no matter how much I polished my words, they always seemed to land the wrong way. One night, after another circular conversation, I found myself sitting on the floor of my apartment, the blue light of my phone glowing on my face. I was typing another explanation, and I suddenly stopped. I looked around, books I loved stacked on the floor, a cold cup of tea on the windowsill, the faint hum of the city, and I realized I didn't feel like I existed anymore. I was becoming someone I didn't recognize. All for the hope of being understood by someone who never truly listened. The moment I stopped proving my heart. The next morning, I did something radical. I didn't text back. I didn't clarify. I didn't justify. I didn't reach for harmony. Instead, I went for a walk. It was just after rain, the kind that leaves the sidewalk glowing like slate. The clouds were hanging low, and puddles reflected windows like tiny warped mirrors. As I crossed a quiet intersection, a single yellow leaf floated down and landed on my shoe. I didn't brush it off. Each step felt strange, like walking without armor. But with every block, I felt lighter. That evening, I lit a candle, wrote in my journal, and for the first time in a long while, I ended a day without trying to convince anyone of who I was. And in that quiet, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks: peace. Marcus Aurelius reminded me where peace comes from. I returned to the meditations that night. I'd highlighted this line long ago, but never really felt it until now. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say, or think, or do, only what you do." It's not apathy, It's not shutting down, it's remembering. Your clarity doesn't depend on their comprehension. Your heart doesn't need their permission to be honest. I'd been giving my peace away. Every time I tried to correct someone's perception of me, now I was reclaiming it. Not by shouting, but by stepping back. A small success, the conversation I didn't have. A few days later, they messaged me. Another misinterpretation, another assumption about my silence. I started typing, but halfway through, I closed the message window, not out of bitterness, but out of understanding. They weren't ready to meet me where I was, and I wasn't going to abandon myself just to be met halfway. So instead, I put my phone down, made myself a bowl of oatmeal, watched the rain trace lines on my window, and nothing exploded. The world didn't end, but a cycle did. I chose myself, quietly, finally. Before I end, I want to say this. If you've ever misjudged someone, read them wrong, push them away because you didn't understand their silence or softness, I've done that. We all have. Not because we're cruel, but because we often hear others through the static of our own fears. This isn't about blame. It's about noticing. Noticing when we're more focused on defending our version of the story than holding space for theirs. If you've been on the other side, you're not broken either, just human. And now, aware. I'm still not perfect, and I don't need to be. I still catch myself drafting long text. I still feel the ache of being misunderstood, but now I meet that ache with gentleness. I breathe into it. I remind it. We don't live in other people's heads anymore. And that, for me, is progress. Not perfection, but presence. If you've ever felt misread, reduced, and oversimplified, you're not alone, and you're not broken. You're just not everyone's mirror. And that's a good thing. And let them misunderstand. Let them draw conclusions. Let them talk. You keep walking, keep writing, keep becoming. You were never meant to be explained, only lived. If this felt like something you've lived, don't leave in silence. Like this video, subscribe to Bare Soul Notes, and share it with someone who keeps over-justifying their existence. Because peace isn't found in being perfectly understood. It's found in being radically honest with yourself. And here, we practice that kind of honesty together.